Before we start today's show, I want to invite you to stick around at the end of this episode to enjoy a preview of a new podcast that premieres on August 31st. As the industry's exclusive cannabis podcast network, MJBulls is proud to present Can Trends. If you're a buyer or seller of bulk goods, you'll want to start each week with the most up-to-the-minute cannabis and hemp pricing data and industry matrix direct from the Can Trades platform. Listen every Monday to Can Trends. For too many years, families of children with devastating illnesses have felt helpless as they watch their child suffer. Today, they're taking matters into their own hands and finally finding relief treating their child with cannabis. These are their stories.
Welcome to another episode of Love and Cannabis. I am Nina Simmons.
And I am Osiris Stephen.
And we are the proud parents of Aiden Stephen.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode.
Hello, hello, hello.
Oh man, this is going to be a great day for us. We have a guest coming out from Austin, Texas.
Yes.
It's funny, I've always had an interest in checking out Texas, especially Austin. I heard it's up and coming. But then I was given the news that it's like a, triple digits. So I think I'm going to hold off my plans.
Yeah, you always like, let's move to Texas. I'm like, do you know it's very, very hot there? Like, very hot.
I'm like, what's hot? But triple digits, that's hot enough. So our guest tonight is Shayda Torabi, and she's out in Austin, Texas. And she started her company called Restart CBD. And it all started from her injury from a car accident that she had some years ago. And she got introduced to it by her mother, which is really, really interesting because, some parents, they're, old school. They're not going to try to do anything different. But her mother just basically took the horns by the bull and just basically helped this young lady get back on her feet. So I'm looking forward to hearing her story and also what she's been up to and what she's done since then. Hi, Shayda. How are you doing?
I'm doing so great. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
No, it's our pleasure. And thank you for, coming on board because, I was really interested in hearing more about your story and just where you are now with everything.
Yeah, and I think getting to hear some of y'all's episodes and understand what this show is really about. We were talking kind of, before the show was recording, how important it is for everybody to kind of lean into their truth and to, use what they have and share what they feel comfortable with sharing. But obviously you guys have a personal story when it comes to how CBD got introduced in your life. You're able to be relatable to other parents of children who might be in a similar situation. And that to me is just the ultimate opportunity with this plant, really. And so I feel for my corner of the world, yes, in hot triple digits, Austin, Texas, I get to do the same thing by sharing my story. And so I'm super humbled and honored and grateful to be telling you a little bit more about myself and Restart CBD. So yes. Where should I begin?
So just tell us in the beginning, why you started using CBD.
So I will admit, and I have said this on many other podcasts, while I'm in Texas, I am a fan of cannabis in all of its forms, so including high THC.
Wonderful.
So yes, including marijuana.
Yeah.
And I was a consumer for many years. Growing up in Austin, we are coined the live music capital of the world. I think one could argue live music and cannabis go very hand in hand. And so I partook as, a young teenager over the years. And it was really from a recreational perspective. I would say I definitely got into what is quote unquote cannabis culture, but I'm being really honest. I had no idea what CBD was. I didn't know what THC stood for. I had no idea what an endocannabinoid system was. I was just, a fan of the plant. And so fast forward to about, I think it was like 2005 or 2006. It blows my mind. I think it was 2005 now. It's been 5 years. I was in a car accident and I was hit by a vehicle as a pedestrian in downtown Austin. And Yeah, it's like one of those things you think, they joke, oh, you'll get hit by a bus. And like people joke. And I'm like, I've actually been hit by a car before. I've survived, thankfully, again, God bless. But
Yes.
it definitely was, obviously something you never wish would ever happen to you. And so the accident did cause some fractures in my pelvis, specifically my sacrum. And I was immobile for about a month and a half. So I couldn't walk and had a lot of pain build up, and that led into going to physical therapy and being put on, pain medication and steroid injections. And I would say going through those traditional recovery methods. It was about 8 months post accident. So I was like, in and out of the doctor's office, getting my prescriptions refilled. But at the same time, I was also going through some more natural healing modalities. So just trying to get into fitness. I cleaned up my diet. I was trying to eat really clean, whole foods, plants, good protein, nice fats, and really taking care of my body from the inside out. And I noticed, again, 8 months post accident, that I still had this chronic pain. And at 25 years old, I was literally the person who could feel the weather changing because my pelvis was aching, and that would expand to, oh man, I stood on a hard surface for too long. My, hip would flare up. I sat on the wrong surface. My pelvis would start aching. It was just like that whole left side of my body was just like out of my control. And so I would turn to, again, okay, well, maybe I should go back to physical therapy and tighten specific muscles. Okay, maybe I should go back and get a steroid injection, and just constantly trying to self-navigate. And still this whole time, like loving cannabis and consuming cannabis with high THC. But it wasn't until my mother, who thankfully, I feel super fortunate that I have parents who are open-minded. And I will kind of caveat my love of cannabis with also, I'm not into other things. I know that there's a stigma around cannabis as a gateway, drug, yada, yada. I love cannabis, and it stops there. I don't really drink a lot, especially now. I'm almost 30. I prefer cannabis over a cocktail, 364 days of the year. I am really fit and healthy. I take care of my body. And so it's just one of those things, like, I really care about what I put in my body, but I really believe cannabis is a really great plant, both from a recreational and a medicinal perspective. And so kind of back to my story, I didn't know what CBD was, really. I didn't know what these, again, endocannabinoid systems were. I didn't know how these things played in, but my mom, being my loving, kind, open-minded mother, said, hey, I know that you like smoking pot, basically. Thanks, Mom. She's like, hey, I know you like smoking pot. Do you know what CBD is? And I literally remember the day. I remember Googling it, laughing to myself, because the definition of it was essentially, a cannabinoid found in the cannabis plant. And what little education I knew correlated to me, oh, if I'm smoking pot, I must be getting CBD. Therefore, CBD doesn't work. And so I was a little skeptical. I will say, I do listen to my parents. I respect them. And so when my mom kept pushing me to try and look at CBD, I was like, okay, fine, Mom, you keep bugging me about it. I will take a look at CBD. And so at that time, CBD was not legal in America.
Yes.
It wasn't illegal, but it wasn't legal.
It was like
and so finding actually like quality products was very difficult. And so my mom essentially was sourcing raw materials from Europe and was making little tinctures for me, really, and her friends. And so I remember showing up to her house one day, and she's like, here, I got you a little CBD tincture. And, oh, I know you like to vape, I made you a little CBD vape. And I'm like, what? I'm like, where is my mom coming up with this stuff? But she's like such a little mad scientist. She's into like herbal remedies and things like that. And so she was just like, yeah, here, just like try it. And again, to kind of caveat and interject a point of reflection for people, which I'm sure y'all can add some color to this. One, presently in 2020, dosing is very, very vague. I mean,
Yes.
how much one person needs is something legally nobody should really be telling somebody. So that makes it hard from a consumer perspective. But two, from a consumer perspective, you're like, I don't know how much to take. What's going to happen to me if I take too much? And so I think because I have a personality that is a little bit more open-minded, I'm always the friend who's like, I'll eat the edible. Like, how much is in it? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, that's fine. I'll figure it out, by experience. And so really when my mom was giving me these products, there was no concept of dose or dosage or how much or how often. And so I really was like blindly consuming CBD heavy products without really understanding what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And again, because it's my mom, I was like, okay, you're a crazy lady. But she would text me every day, like, did you take your, sublingual? Have you been using? She made me a topical too. So I was really like using a topical, a sublingual, and vaping it. And just what I would now, consider addressing it as overdosing, which we can't overdose on cannabis. But at that time, I don't know how many milligrams I was taking. I don't know what I was doing, but y'all, it was working. So like 3 weeks into this overdose on CBD, I remember how excruciating the pain was on my left side. I was a left side sleeper prior to the accident. And then after the accident, I could no longer sleep on my left side. And I would have moments throughout recovery where my body would roll that way, because how do you retrain your body after years of sleeping on a particular side? And so I just remember how uncomfortable it was to be on the left side of my body. I had even, relearned how to sit and adjust my seating just on my right cheekbone and to cross my legs the other way because it was more comfortable for my body. And one morning I remember waking up on my left side and it didn't feel like my body was crushing itself. And I just remember thinking, holy shit. I think this is really working, and again, at that point, to reframe it, like I had already changed my diet months prior. I had already started working out months prior. I was already in this fit mindset and fit lifestyle. I just was still experiencing chronic pain and did not want to use the prescriptions or pain medication that was being prescribed to me. And so for me, that was a really interesting moment because I became a believer pretty much instantly after that day. And what I would go on to learn is in marijuana, it's high in THC, and THC and CBD cannot be in high percentages equally. Mm-hmm. And so the weed of today is much stronger than the weed of, yesteryear, the 1970s, the 60s. And so as we push THC percentages higher and higher, CBD becomes lower and lower and further into trace percentages. And so I just don't even think all those years I was consuming, weed, I was really even benefiting or experiencing CBD, hence why it was such an anomaly of an experience for me. And so I think that was really powerful once I started realizing, why CBD is more predominant in hemp. It's because hemp is lower in THC. And I just got in a rabbit hole. And that was really how I got introduced to CBD. And so that was about 2015. And I would say we didn't launch Restart CBD until 2018. So we sat on it for a couple of years because who was talking about CBD in 2015? Not really a lot of people.
Yes, exactly. Did the doctors ever put you on any opiates?
I was on an opioid prescription when I had first come out of the hospital. Mm-hmm. And then I got put on I think it was Tylenol with some codeine was mm-hmm. kind of what they had dropped me down to whenever the pain would flare up. And I'm sure you can, relate, and the listeners, I'm sure if they've got children or themselves have gone through chronic pain or diseases, if you are in a position like that, it's really easy for the doctors to prescribe. And this is no disrespect to medical professionals or the medical field. I think that they're doing the best they can with the information that they have. I think for me, it was a really big wake-up call because I remember getting hit and then feeling the pain. And in my mind thinking, and obviously an accident is a little bit different than something that you might have been born with. It's a condition or something along those lines. But for me, in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm going to get better. I'm mm-hmm. going to heal. duh, if I take pills, the pain will feel, less and less. And then my body will just heal itself, not realizing as my body was healing itself, it would leave a tear in my, pelvis area. And when I would go back to the doctor and get x-rays after x-rays, he was kind of like unsure really where the tear was. It was like, well, we think the tear's here and we probably can't fix it if we, do surgery, but it's an option. And that was for me a pinnacle moment too of kind of jumping into CBD, and why my mom really introduced CBD to me, because I went back to the doctor and I was like, dude, I'm still in pain and I've done all these things. I've done all the healing stuff. Why hasn't it gotten better? And he did the scans and he identified that there was still a tear, and he basically suggested surgery. And that's when my mom was like, hell no. Like, we know that surgery can cause further complications. At that time after the accident, I know weight is, love your body. I preach love your body. But I gained a lot of weight because I became inactive.
Exactly.
And I was very depressed because I was inactive, and just very uncomfortable in my skin because I was now dealing with chronic pain. And so when I started working out and getting healthy, that was such a mind shift for me in the best way possible. But it also left me still with chronic pain that I was dealing with. And so when I went to the doctor and he suggested surgery, I just kept thinking, I can't be immobile for another month recovering. Like, plus, I don't know what that's going to look like and if it's going to actually heal me. And so I think I was, desperate and curious of what CBD could do, and really just jumped out on a ledge because, like, why not? Again, with my personality, especially having consumed other cannabis products, I figured if it works, great. If it doesn't work, no harm, no foul. But I do think there's a lot of consumers who are skeptical because it's associated to high THC products, for better or worse, whether, you positively associated to it or not. I do think there is a lot of medicinal benefit to be found, not in just THC or CBD, but really some of these other minor cannabinoids too, CBG, CBN, CBC. And because, we're opening the door with CBD, I think it's a really beautiful opportunity. This plant is getting a lot of attention to properly research it, to properly regulate it, so that consumers can have confidence with what they're purchasing and putting in their bodies.
Yeah, and we're still doing a lot of research on why it works for pain. And listening to your story, it seemed like your body's probably was really inflamed and getting re-inflamed. And it could be the CBD help with a lot of the inflammation, thus maybe relieve some of your pain.
Yeah, I think it definitely helped with the inflammation. I also, I think where my mom was jumping off from a point was, and this is purely anecdotal, everything should be reviewed with a doctor. But she had heard that CBD and really cannabis can help with bone growth. And so that was actually one of her priorities in encouraging me to take it, was just like, you just don't know what this plant can do. And I think now, as a business owner in this space, I reflect on that experience personally of, if I can just help my consumer be comfortable enough to take a chance and try it. Again, I can't say, guarantee this is going to work for you for every ailment that you come in for thinking CBD is going to fit and check the box for. But if you're open-minded and you play around with different consumption methods and you play around with different dosages and frequencies, I do believe maybe what you went into taking CBD for could have benefits that you didn't know were possible because you just weren't limited in what you thought CBD could do. So yes, I think, to say that it's explicitly something that helped my bones regrow, I don't know. I know that the pain I have is not as bad as it was, 5 years ago. My healing has been really, really great. And I do still continue to use CBD. And there's definitely days where my pain flares up. Like I said, I still sit in the wrong, seat, or I wear the wrong shoes for too long, like heels on a hard surface. I instantly know I'm going to be in some pain. And so thankfully now I know how I can play around with CBD. So for me, it's really come down to, what is my daily dose that I use, and versus like, what is my, hey, I just hurt myself, or I need a little bit extra love because my body's more inflamed. And so because I'm comfortable playing around with doses and frequencies, try to help explain that and portray that to consumers that I come across, because that's really where you unlock the power of it. Like, I can't even imagine from y'all's perspective, how much do you give your son? What's going to work for him? I think it's just a reality check for everybody listening of, there's no magic, take this much, this many times, and it's going to work the first time. I mean, I'm sure people have had that experience, but it really is, okay, let's try different products. Let's see different qualities. Let's see full spectrum versus isolate is a question I get all the time. So there's definitely different types of products on the market. And I think that doing your homework and doing your research will get you far, but then also just doing the research within your own body and how it interacts with your body is really where you can unlock that power, like I said.
So let me ask you a question. So since your injury, when was the last time you saw the doctor? Did you have a follow-up? And do you still have that tear that they wanted to surgery?
Yeah, I never went back to the doctor. I basically broke up with my orthopedic surgeon. I was like, thank you so much. Bye, gotta go. So yeah, no, I've never gone and gotten it rescan to see if the tear is still there. But it's one of those things that I try to, again, remind consumers, like, your pain is so real and relative to you. And I think that there is an argument that people make, oh, CBD is a placebo effect. Fine. Maybe it is. But if I feel better and I don't have to go get prescription pills or steroid injections to manage my pain, something's working, and I would like to keep doing that. So for me to not have to go back to my orthopedic surgeon because I found something that, again, to kind of anecdotally share from one of my customers, they said, when they're on their medication, maybe it helps them 90% of the pain. But when they're on CBD, maybe it only helps them 70%, but they feel better being on CBD because it doesn't have the side effects that their prescriptions have. And they're in control of how much and how often that they give themselves CBD versus having to go and be on a prescription that they are starting to feel uncomfortable being on for long periods of time. And so I think to contrast that with, pain is always going to be there. I'm not going to pretend like I'm completely healed and I don't ever have pain on the left side of my body. I do. Like I just stated, certain shoes, certain surfaces, pain is real. And as I age, my body will continue to give me bumps and bruises and ailments. But knowing, like I said, too, how to use cannabis really to unlock different treatments is really powerful. Like, I was in Colorado hiking a couple weeks ago and twisted my ankle and immediately wrapped my foot in some CBD and THC, because I was in Colorado, salve, and put my foot in a big sock and just let it soak overnight. And then in the daytime, I would sit my foot in a CBD soak and just did that for a couple of days. And my ankle felt 1,000 times better than what I would believe is if I hadn't have done that. And so it's just like, I now know how to use different types of products that can help, with certain things. And I just think it's a really fun industry to be into. I mean, I am that kid who grew up watching, Weeds and Nancy Botwin, and just kind of seeing the market and the industry go really from being this blacklist kind of experience to now being able to publicly and proudly share my cannabis story. I mean, I just never thought that I'd be able to do this. And so here we are.
Wow. I'm so glad that you told it to the audience that it's not a miracle. Like, same thing with Aiden. He has we're getting better, like 95% seizure control. And he is on a very small dosage of medication from his doctor. But however, he has a better quality of life, like you were saying. So he's able to go to school. At one point we thought he wouldn't go to school. He goes today. We went swimming. He goes to the beach. He learned how to read. He played on a baseball team. When that happened, both of us almost cried.
It's such a beautiful opportunity to be able to give your son some semblance of his life.
Yeah. So like you said, okay, you may have your aches and pains, but at least you can go hiking. At least you can work.
That's right.
And that's huge. And some people take it for granted, but it's huge.
They do. And I think it's just getting people comfortable I had a customer come into our shop the other day, and she is the sister of a woman whose daughter works for us. So she kind of has been hearing about CBD from her, I guess, niece, and is a little bit, still skeptical about it, and came into the shop and was just asking me some questions. And I think just being able to have that kind of, I always take the one-to-one approach. Like if I can help one person feel a little bit more comfortable how CBD could work for them, then I feel like I've done my job. And obviously being able to be on a podcast where hopefully you're able to have like multiple ripple effects, like I think that's such a powerful opportunity. But I always try to like focus on that one person and just trying to get them to be comfortable with, like I said, playing around with different dosage and frequencies, but also to be curious, how does this plant work? Are you on other medications? Check in with your doctor. I think it's just opened up a really beautiful dialogue because everybody's story is different. And so, similar to y'all's situation, sometimes medication is needed. I definitely don't promote, get off all your medication and just go full on cannabis. I think that there is a process and a procedure, and depending on what you're taking it for, you definitely need to be cautious. But I am excited because I'm starting to see more medical professionals encourage that conversation. So of course, with doctor-patient confidentiality, I don't really get the privilege of knowing who all these medical professionals are who are referring people to me and to our shop. But I would say pretty frequently, people, like I said, start to tell us their stories, why they're taking CBD. And we just try to have that one-on-one understanding of, making them feel comfortable. And they'll start sharing, hey, by the way, my doctor recommended I come to you guys. And it's really for everything you could imagine why you've heard people would take CBD for, whether it's aches and pains, it's epilepsy, it's anxiety, it's chronic, it's sleep, neuropathy I've heard come up. And, again, to kind of umbrella everything we're saying, I'm not a doctor. So I can't, we're not doctors. We can't say this is what CBD can do, but what we can do is listen and learn and share, right? And so I think when you can start to have more of that sharing happening, especially between the medical industry, it's really exciting. So yeah, we've started to see some more doctors and nurses recommend people to look at CBD and acknowledge they don't know enough about it, that they should go to somebody who specializes in CBD. And so I think it's a really beautiful symbiotic relationship that I know is probably not the case for every, market that CBD is in, but for us in Austin, it's been really exciting because people, one, I think because we don't have a true medicinal market and we don't have a rec market either, or an adult use market, people are hungry for something. But I think that extra has opened up the conversation for looking at CBD or cannabis rather, from a medicinal perspective with low THC. And to see the amount of people who I get to see and meet who are like, I've never touched, weed in my life, and I've made it this long, and like, here I am. And it's because my doctor recommended I try it and sent me to you guys. And you're just like, wow, this is really powerful that we're able to have this impact on somebody's quality of life. And it's just, I feel really blessed that I get to, be a piece for some people in that regard.
So going fast forward now, that was about some years ago. And now that what made you decide basically to open up a store and say, you know what, I want to help the masses?
Yeah, great question. Wish I had a super polished, tidy answer. The reality is we started it. Gosh, the story is kind of a weaving journey, which I'm spiritual and do believe, that everything is happening with some purpose, some, reason behind it. And so I obviously mentioned I love cannabis. And then I talked about my accident. My parents are small business owners, and I think just throughout life have always kind of had that encouragement of an entrepreneurial spirit. I think especially my parents daughters, they encouraged us to dream big and to not be afraid and to really push the boundaries and, think outside the box. And so I had that, kind of structure growing up, and I was working in corporate technology as a digital marketer for a WordPress company. And I was working for them when I was in the accident. So I had a, for all intents and purposes, very nice, cushy, thankfully had insurance at the time. I had good insurance because of this corporate job. So when I was in the accident, it afforded me a lot of comfort despite getting actually physically injured from a financial perspective. But it was not, not a place I was going to stay forever. Right. And so I was looking for my exploring what is that itch? What does it look like for me to work for myself? That company, I have really got to wear many hats. I would join them as employee 13. And over the course of 6 years, that company would explode into over, 1,000 employees, offices in Austin, San Francisco, London, Australia. Like, they really exploded. And so I was really fortunate to watch somebody else, start a company and be a part of all those little different moments of building it. But again, still never thought, you know what, I'm going to build my own company. Like, I'm going to do that one day. And so I would just say it was a perfect storm. I left that tech job, went to go be head of marketing for a digital agency. So I was still working in tech and on the web, and wasn't totally feeling fulfilled. It kind of felt like, I respect the company that I worked for in between, but it was not a fit, I think, for both of us. And so it was during my time working for them that my sister and I, I have two sisters, there's three of us. My middle sister and I are the original co-founders. It was honestly at the nudge of our mom, like, hey, you like CBD, you should actually, let me back up. She was like, hey, what do you want to do in life? Why don't you come with your own business? And I was like, okay, slow your roll. I've got all these benefits. I'm working for somebody else. I'm fine. Like, at the time the job was remote. I could work from wherever. I was like, this is the life. I'm good. But obviously still not really feeling fulfilled, that I was open to something else. And so my mom kept encouraging us, what do you want to do? What could you do? What could be that product? If you've ever watched Shark Tank, I'm sure you've seen like, oh, I've had that idea, but I've, just never put it into plan. Yeah. And so I had that kind of mentality of like thinking, well, what if I could create something? What would I create? And kind of, pooping out, giving up. I was like, I don't know what the thing is I could do. And then my mom is saying over here in the corner, CBD, you like cannabis. You're really good at branding. CBD, why not CBD, Shayda? And I was like, dude, that's wild. Like, it's one thing for me to use it to feel better, but nobody was talking about it. Kind of in 2017, 2018, you started seeing brands like Charlotte's Web emerge, but it was still such a rogue product because it was so associated to cannabis. And at that time, it was not federally legal. So we kind of started the project as a side hobby, just as a, let me just dip my toe in the water. And again, because my background was digital and web, it's really easy for me to make an e-commerce website. And so I thought this would be a perfect scenario. I'll keep my day job. I'll start this side job. I'll just put it online and I'll just sell some CBD on the web and it'll be fine. We'll see what happens. And we realized really early on that people, one, were really curious about CBD. Like, the moment we started talking about it, people were very interested and engaged with what we were saying. And it kind of paralleled the excitement in the market. And so people assumed that we launched because we saw there was an opportunity in the market. And that's like the farthest from the truth. It was really like, oh, sure. Like, let's just start a hobby and see what happens. And so, I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it really was something that was so deprioritized on my list because I just didn't really see people talking about CBD. I mean, I knew how hard of a time THC and, weed was having, that I just was like, this is really far-fetched. Like, I don't know who's going to take this supplement. Like, to me, it seemed kind of like a turmeric or an ashwagandha. And again, those do have healing properties to some extent, but it's like, it just seemed kind of like a fad. And it was really just a perfect storm. We had launched online And what I have neglected to mention throughout this whole podcast is my sister and I are very well-known Austinites to some extent. We created online platforms for ourselves. We did a really good job basically personally branding ourselves, myself as a food blogger and my sister as a fitness blogger. And so we have amassed a certain amount of followings under these separate accounts. And those accounts afforded us the opportunity to kind of further test this CBD thing. So we would be promoting it on these accounts like, oh, we're selling CBD now. Like, do you have questions? And we were getting this real-time feedback from people who were like, wait, CBD, this is cool. Let's talk about it more. And my sister was working at a gym, and the gym was really hungry for pop-ups and like just brand collaborations. And so we started doing these CBD fitness pop-ups and selling, little bottles with these women, and we would do workouts and just talk to them about what CBD was. And we were getting ourselves educated, educating them, and like really just scratching the surface. And so I would say that was like August and September and October of 2018. We launched in August. CBD did not go federally legal until October of 2019. And so we were one of the, I guess, people in Texas who was like, we're just going to kind of do this. It's not really federally legal and it's not technically legal in our state, but we're just selling online. Like it was a gray area. Like we really just didn't know what we didn't know. And again, kind of perfect storm. I happened to get laid off from my digital agency job and kind of had that come to Jesus moment of, there's some excitement in this CBD brand that we're brewing. And I felt like God had literally parted the waters and said, this is why we're in the accident. This is why you grew up loving marijuana. This is why you discovered CBD. This is why you have parents that are very entrepreneurial. This is why you love marketing and branding and e-commerce. And so it was kind of like, okay, Shayda, Sydney, like just go out on a limb and see what happens. And I think it was because I have had parents who understood the sacrifices that it takes to be in business for yourself because they're small business owners. It was definitely uncomfortable, I think, for me having a conversation with my dad because my dad also is an immigrant and comes from Iran. And there is some sort of expectation on, the children to be successful and to be doctors or lawyers or business people, like many, Asian and Middle Eastern cultures. And for me, I kind of was on that business path track. I had gone and, done that for a couple of years. And this was a moment where I was like, hey, Dad, remember when you told me that I could do anything? I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it in cannabis. And I'm going to do it in Texas. Thank you so much. Please don't judge me. And there was a brief moment where he was like, but you don't have insurance and your accident. Like, what if something happens? And I just kind of had to have a really frank conversation. Like, I really think that this is something that I need to shoot my shot on and just lean into because I really care about this plant and we have a really cool story to tell. And I think that we can really help people see this plant from a new perspective. And I would say that was like the beginning of the rest of our journey. We've just been so blessed. Those pop-ups led to us getting our products in front of consumers and realizing that online e-commerce, not only is it very challenging for this industry because we were talking about before, we started hitting record where it's legal, but certain aspects of the industry like social media have so many barriers to entry. And so online is a really big barrier to entry. And I think reflecting 2 years later, it's certainly gotten easier. But 2 years ago, it was kind of insane to think that we were going to be an online brand because people were just so curious what CBD was. And because we had had these opportunities to get in front of consumers and I had just gotten laid off, my time was free. And we basically set up in the front of our parents' insurance agency. They had a front office. They moved their reception girl to the back and they let us set up a couple of IKEA shelves. Shout out to all my original customers for coming and seeing us because we were literally in an industrial garage's like side office. and we sold CBD there for about 6.5 months before we moved into our present retail location, which we've now been for about like a year and a half, and just have been educating consumers and learning and fighting and advocating and sharing and just absorbing as much as we can in this industry ever since. And so, yeah, we originally launched with isolate products. We soon would expand to full spectrum. We do topicals. I do pet products now. I did do smokables, except the state of Texas just banned retail hemp smokable purchases as of August 2nd. So we have to get creative with that change happening in our state. But yeah, that's an example of the road is not straight and narrow. And I wouldn't have it any other way, because the road that took me to get here was not straight and narrow. And I just feel like such a blessing to be able to feel like everything is connected, and to now be able to give back to this plant that has really impacted my life so much, and help other people find some sort of relief and ownership of their own wellness and well-being is really like the joy. So
basically it sounds like it empowered you to get to where you are now, and you're sharing that empowerment with others. Now, looking at your state, it's 1.6 million are veterans. So how many veterans are you seeing coming into your shop?
We actually see a lot of veterans. And again, I think it's on the educational front. There's definitely different communities. And I always love to kind of highlight, I think people see CBD or cannabis with dollar signs in their eyes. And there's a lot of people that do want to exploit this industry. But I think that there's a lot more good happening. And I think you're seeing it in these micro communities of, like, for example, I just had a guy, his Instagram is, I'm going to butcher it because I think he has like underscores in it, but it's essentially like at CBD vet. And he's a Texas veteran and, younger guy, was discharged because he had some injuries, and personally discovered the benefit of CBD and came across some of our YouTube videos, and that led him to my store. And so he came and we had this amazing conversation, and it was just like, I wanted to help empower him because he's helping empower people. And so I think you're seeing these different communities where, again, I think it's such a one-to-one game. Maybe now CBD has been in the market for a couple of years. There's obviously hype around it. More and more people are familiar with it. But I do think it starts with, like, I'm sure there's some really scared parent out there who relates to you and your story so much because they see what they're going through with their kid, and maybe that's what they needed to hear to feel like they could trust this plant. And so I think again, going back to kind of like, I feel like the whole, point of y'all's podcast that I really do love and appreciate is reminding people like your unique individual story is relatable. And so I think, yeah, veterans is just one of those pockets that we see a lot more interest in, because I think that obviously there's a lot of not only like physical damage, but psychological damage that happens. Yes. And wanting to just have better control over your mind and your body. And even just looking at it purely from a recreational perspective, being able to unwind is so beautiful. And like, I just want people to be able to experience that.
Now, did you have to get crowdfunding to help you open up your shop, or were you able to, you guys were able to make some, generate enough revenue to open up your own shop? Because I know it's hard to get a loan. It's hard to walk up to the bank and say, yeah, I just want to open up a CBD shop, even though I know it's not legal yet, but, we'll get there.
Yeah, 100%. That is the very real scenario that I think most business owners are facing getting in this space. I mean, I'm the first to advocate, like, anybody who thinks that they, it's not for the faint of heart. And I don't think that you have to have a lot of money to get involved in the industry. I think you need to just do your research and be really aware of what you're selling and where you're selling and how you're selling it. I think there's definitely some nuances that we learned the hard way. For us, we were a little bit fortunate where because of my tech job and I got laid off, I basically was taking the money that I was saving up and decided to pour it into the business. It was kind of my like shoot my shot moment of, well, this is the time. So let's just invest it now and see what happens. And so the business was able to kind of like start self-funding itself. I mean, like I said, very small beginnings. We we were scrappy. My original, like I said, furniture for my displays was IKEA. Actually, fun fact, all my displays are still from IKEA. My first retail space was taking over my parents' dungeon of a front office. Again, I joke about it, but like, I think some people are like, oh, I've got to have the best retail space and I have to have, the best this and that. And I need money and I got to do marketing. Like, the fact that we can't be on social media is like a huge crippling effect for some people. But I think that that's just like par for the course. You have to be okay with these adversities because it's just like, it's a new industry and this is like how we're trailblazing it forward. And so there's going to be some casualties, unfortunately.
So this is a whole family affair as well as your parents are involved. I know Dad's looking like, good luck.
This is a family affair. My sisters and I are the owners. So our littlest sister just came on full time. And so we lovingly go by the CBD sisters. And we are very involved in our business. You can always find at least two of us there on any given day at the same time. And we really just, I keep emphasizing it, but it's so important. It's like this educational component and it's this like relatability to make people feel comfortable with the plant. And I look at it like this. If somebody comes into my store and I'm, CBD shop A and I'm selling a product and the person leaves without any sort of information, if their friend asks them, are you taking CBD? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, well, what do you know about it? And that person can't recite or regurgitate anything relevant, then it kind of the buck stops with them, right? Like they're no longer an advocate. And then you kind of lay on top of that the shops like maybe myself, where we are a little bit more educational. When we educate consumers, we've seen it happen. Those people go and they tell their friends, oh, I went to this shop. These people educated me. They're not going to be able to retain all the information, but they start to retain some of the information and that starts to spread. And then you start to see, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so. My coworker came in here and gets this product from you. And then you start to learn about them and you then start to empower that person. And it's just like empowering people to make them advocates. And all of that is going to feed into voting. We have, for better or worse, a judicial system, and voting is how laws get passed. It's how people get elected. It's how, like I said, better or worse, things get done in America. And if people have a positive experience coming out of my shop and they're a positive advocate and they're impacting their circle of influence, then when it comes time to talk about cannabis issues or cannabis policy or cannabis like crime and all those, other aspects associated to cannabis laws, they're going to be more likely to be in favor of supporting those policies and those lawmakers and those people in position versus the person who goes to CBD shop and has a really bad experience. Maybe they didn't get educated. Maybe worse, the product didn't even work because we know that most things are unregulated at this point and nobody's encouraging or enforcing them to really care. And so I think you just see such a gap in the industry right now of people who are trying really hard to be good stewards of this plant and people who are trying to exploit it and consumers who are stuck in the middle trying to navigate, who do I trust? Whose product should I take? Is it going to work for me? Is it going to get me high? Is this going to make me fail a drug test? Am I hurting myself? What's going to happen if I put this in my body? And there's just like very real questions that, again, before we were recording, we were kind of talking about, as a consumer, don't you read ingredient labels? Like, don't you want to know what's going in your body? And it's just really shocking when you start to see and hear. Again, I think thankfully, because I have a retail location, I see people who come in who will share their stories like, hey, so I went to this smoke shop and I bought some CBD oil and I don't really think it worked, but I also admit that I don't really think that it was a high quality. So I did some more research and I came to check you guys out because my friends keep saying CBD works and, here I am. imagine all the people who went to the smoke shop, vape shop, bought CBD, the gas station, the chiropractor's office. No offense to these places, the online retailer, the Amazon store, and bought something that wasn't what they said it was. And then now they have a bad experience, and now they don't think CBD works. And now they're going to go tell their friends, this doesn't work. Screw this plant. It's just a gimmick. It's a snake oil. And then voting comes. They want to pass CBD laws. They want to pass cannabis laws. They want to make it an essential business. That person is less likely to be in favor of it. And so it's just obviously a really big undertaking for one person or one business or one industry rather, but it's kind of my corner that I like to defend. You know, it's like if I can have every person who interacts with me walk away feeling more empowered, confident, and comfortable with cannabis, then like I did my job done. And if there's sales in the bank, great. But really, I just want people to be more informed and encouraged about plant-based medicine.
Well, this gives me faith in the industry that we know there's people like you out there that's just all about the plant, just feeling empowered and sharing it. Because, you know, like most industries, you're going to find a few people who are just looking to make the quick, fast buck and not think about the person who's using it. Because like we said, oh, you know, with our child, we're dependent on that. You know, we're depending on that CBD oil being exactly what is stated. And, you know, we hope that it works and stay consistent. So I'm glad that you and your family have all jumped in to support you, because a lot of people don't get that support. It's like, it's taboo. It's really not until something happens to them, then they may come around. But
that's right. Then
again, it's still that stigma that hangs over it, and it's hard for people to make that decision. But I'm glad that you're out there and you're showing people, you know, exactly how it works. So I wish you all the best of luck. Now, if people wanted to get in touch with you, you know, before we go, like, how would they be able to get in touch with you?
They can find us at Restart CBD on Instagram, /Restart CBD on Facebook, and of course, restartcbd.com. And I appreciate the time and love what you guys are doing, and hope the listeners got a good kick out of this little cannabis Texas girl story. So Thanks again.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I'll wait till it gets a little cooler. I'll stop by.
Yes, but our door's always open. Invitation if anybody finds themselves in Austin, Texas. Yeah, we do have a retail storefront, so you can come see us in person.
Okay. You guys have a drive-through just in case? I just want to stay in the AC.
We do curbside pickup.
Oh, awesome.
Text us. You can order online. You can text us. We'll come bring it out to your car door so you can keep the AC on, stay safe, all those good things. We got you.
Got it. And you have a retail store online, if someone wants to get your product online?
Yeah, I did see that.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, we are shipping definitely across state lines because all of our products are derived from hemp, but we have a wide range of products. And if people have questions about anything or even just curious, you know, to talk and get a second opinion, just literally slide into our DM, send us an email, hello@Restart CBD. We're always happy to chat with people. And like I said, just help make them feel more comfortable so that they can understand more about cannabis for themselves.
All right. That's awesome. Oh, and you're also on Instagram as well.
On Instagram @Restart CBD. And then again, my personal, if people want to follow, is @with Shayda. That's my influencer account.
Okay. Awesome. Shayda, I want to thank you and the family for what you guys are doing for the community in Austin, Texas. I mean, spreading the wealth, spreading the love and health is a beautiful thing, especially for this industry, because we need it. We need an alternative. We need something different. And I'm glad you're part of it. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and amen to that.
All right. You have a good night. And we definitely hope to see you sometime next year when, things cool off a little bit.
Absolutely. I'll count on it.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Y'all take care. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in another episode of
Love and Cannabis.
I'm Osiris Stephens.
And I'm Nina Simmons.
Be strong.
And stay empowered.
Hi, my name's Mark Rastelli. I'm the CEO of CanTrade. We're the everything business-to-business marketplace for the cannabis and hemp industries. I'm excited today to tell you about our new podcast, Can Trends, where we break down industry metrics and pricing data directly from our platform to give your business an eagle-eye view on what's happening to the products in your industry. If you buy or sell bulk goods in the cannabis or hemp industry, our podcast is a must listen that you can use that week to direct your sales team, to understand where the industry is going, and even figure out what you want to plant next season. Tune in every week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts, and we'll give you an eagle-eye view and even a chance to land some new contract opportunities. We hope you join the Can Trade Network, where your business can trade easy.